Chapter 3, Madrid. My father is a licensed London taxi driver, and whenever I went away, he'd either drop me off and pick me up from the airport, or ask his friend Brian if he wasn't available. Dad had agreed to take me, Alan, Georgie, and a friend of hers called Alison to the airport. He wasn't exactly the fastest driver in the world, but made sure you reached your destination eventually. Are you excited then? Dad asked. And before I had a chance to answer him, he added, "Don't you go pulling sickies again, like you did when you were young." "No, Dad, this is different," I explained. He didn't look happy though. We pulled up in the taxi outside Alan's house. Alan and Georgie bounced in as happy and excited as I was, despite Dad's reservations. When we collected Alison in Greenwich, she was excited too. We all knew that Madrid would be brilliant. "Have a good weekend. Have a good birthday and here's some money. Call your mum when you get there," Dad said. Dad handed me some money as we all got our luggage together. "Thanks, Dad. I will do. See you soon." "Happy birthday, son. Have a good one." We walked into the airport. As we had some time to spare, we headed straight for the bar. Nowadays, cider is a trendy drink with more flavours and varieties than you can shake a stick at. Back in 2001, that meant that most trendy bars didn't stock it. I normally settle for vodka-based Alka Pops. My eyes scanned the bar and quickly found bottles of cider. His birthday weekend was off to a great start. We drank a toast to Madrid, and the drinks continued to flow until we were tipsy, made our way to the departure lounge. A short while later, the call came over the public address system, and we excitedly made our way to the plane, giggling like sugar-hyped schoolchildren. It wasn't the first time I'd been abroad. I'd done the obligatory lads trips to Tenerife, Alcudia, Ibiza with Alan, and even across the USA with my parents. But there seemed something magical about this trip. I was as excited as I could ever remember being. Even now, I'm a huge fan of short breaks and recommend them to anyone. During the short flight, somewhat aided by the cider I drunk at the airport, I managed to fall asleep. Half a dream later, we landed in Madrid. I wasn't in a rush to get off the plane. I sat there staring out the window with a big grin on my face, waiting for the crowds to die down before disembarking. The blazing heat of summer had gone, but even in November it wasn't cold and the sun shone brightly. I grinned and made my way off the plane. We negotiated our way to luggage reclaim and then went to the taxi rank. This is where Georgie really came into her own. Being the only fluent Spanish speaker, she spoke with the taxi driver, and judging by the laughter, they shared a couple of jokes. Me, Alan and Alison were never let into the jokes. We suspected we were the butt of them. Everything always looks better on holiday, and as our taxi journey progressed, I mused that even the Spanish motorway looked good in the late autumn sunshine. Finally, we arrived at our destination. Across the street were a small ice cream parlour and a tobacconist. We unloaded the taxi and I smoked a much longed-for cigarette. Georgie rang the buzzer and a few words of Spanish came across the intercom. Georgie replied and there was much excited shouting. The door opened and out rushed a young woman straight into a big bear hug with Georgie. Georgie then introduced her to us, Angela. She was the sort of person who's so friendly and open that you take an instant like to them. Angela decreed that any friend of Georgie's was a friend of hers and ushered us inside after a hug hello each. Cramming into a small lift, we went up to the 6th floor, Angela unlocking the door to her apartment, and we filled in. For all the world looking like prospective buyers, we stood there, scanning the walls and decor in silence. The suitcases were stowed in a back bedroom, and I heard Alan call my name. I joined him in the apartment balcony. We looked across the road at the playground. Children were still playing in the November sun, but I had a feeling Alan was more interested in the young mums who were watching their children play. From the apartment, I heard the holiday war cry of "Drink!" shouted. I decided to investigate and was soon happily drinking a very generous measure of vodka and cola. It was strong and sent a shiver down my spine. Another person soon joined our little gang. Her name was Jess, and she was a friend of Angela's and Georgie's. A familiar face soon appeared. It was Laura, Alison from Greenwich's cousin. It was good to see her, and we chatted for a while. There were 7 of us drinking in the apartment. It had a party atmosphere, and I couldn't help but think that throwing a sickie was the best thing I had ever done. The next person to arrive was a girl called Natine. She had known Georgie since her school days. Completing the group nearly an hour later, were Angela's brother, John Paul, and his girlfriend Shelley. When I first saw John Paul, I immediately thought he'd be the group's responsible adult. I was wrong. He partied as hard as all of us. Shelley was a funny girl, always laughing, even her own jokes and quips. She invariably got everyone laughing around her too. The drinks kept coming. I was more used to drinking cider, so the generous measures of vodka quickly went straight to my head and from there to my legs. I could feel myself getting drunk, and we hadn't even left for the clubs yet. I ran to the bathroom to dunk my head in cold water to sober up a bit, got changed in some smart clothes. I was ready to hit Madrid's nightclub scene. The Madrid girls, as I came to think of them, recommended a club they'd been to before, so we went along. Thankfully, it wasn't a long wait to get in, as the evenings are quite a bit cooler than the days. I headed to the bar and spotted some familiar Alco pops. With a bottle in each hand, I made my way to the dance floor, but wasn't quite drunk enough to dance at that point. Georgie, true to style, suddenly appeared with a tray of shots for everyone. I had no idea what they were. They tasted vile, but they were strong and did the trick. Next thing I know, I was dancing and laughing like there'd be no tomorrow. It is obligatory as a young British male brought to do something stupid that will make a good photo or story, and I lived up to that obligation. I told Georgie to get your camera ready, then headed to the back of the club about 10 metres from the stage. I looked at her, nodded, then proceeded to sprint to the stage, leapt on and slid the length of it on my chest and stomach. The photos Georgie took captured the spirit of that club night and were very funny. The girls, and Alan, were soon besieged by admirers, although Alan wasn't too keen on the chap trying to chat him up. What with him preferring women, it didn't take Alan long to be dancing in the middle of the Madrid girls. The girls basked in the attention, flirting and dancing and having a whale of a time. I drank and danced some more until the club made it clear that the staff wanted to go home. The tried and tested method of lowering the volume of the music works in any language. We went back to the apartment and carried on drinking. Once more shots appeared, seemingly from nowhere, and even though I don't particularly like doing shots, peer pressure and not wanting to look like a lightweight in front of the girls meant I did some shots. Nadine decided that she'd look after the music and took charge of the stereo. She put on a CD by a folk singer called Beth Orton. This was the first time I'd heard of Beth Orton, and even now hearing her music takes me back to this birthday location. I ended up becoming quite a big fan and bought all of her albums, went to a few concerts. As the night wore on, most of us gave up drinking and just sat back relaxing and listening to music. John Paul carried on drinking just to keep his side up. As we got more relaxed, we started talking and came up with a daft idea. To be honest, this idea is now tradition when any of us meet up and alcohol is involved. Yes, drunk Twister. We played Twister, and as we were all at least very tipsy, this made for an interesting fun game with lots of stumbles and falls. As the night wore on, someone, I still don't remember who, decided it'd be fun to give each other massages. We were all drunk, listening to Beth Orton and massaging each other. I can think of worse ways to spend a Saturday night. Well, Sunday morning, really. Although I dozed off around 5 in the morning, I got up at 8 and went for a stroll around the local area. I wanted to see what Madrid was like, not just the nightclubs and bars. My head was throbbing and I was still drunk. I wandered into a nearby park and sat watching a group of lads, about my age, play football in the early morning sun. Sorry. I started to doze off once more, but panicked myself awake, feeling my face getting warm. I didn't want to get a suntan and tip work off that maybe I hadn't spent the weekend ill in bed. I walked back to the apartment, struck by how nice Madrid looked even in November. I know the typical Spanish working day included a lunchtime siesta, so workers could avoid working in the hottest part of the day. It made the overall work day longer, but I appreciated and liked the common sense behind it. Near the apartment was a small toy shop. I popped in and brought 3 teddy bears for the Madrid girls who let us stay in their home for the weekend. When I got back, people were starting to wake up. I gave the girls the teddies and they actually cried. Just wanted to say thank you, but they were really touched. We spent the rest of the day looking around the historic sites of Madrid, generally doing the tourist thing. As we wandered around, the thought struck me, why don't I move here too? I could come here for a year, there's nothing to stop me. I could bring my bike, I've seen a lot of motorcycle shops and figured I could easily find work as a mechanic. The roads looked good for biking. I liked siestas. My family weren't too far away. This could work. I didn't speak Spanish, but I thought I could learn it. At that precise moment, the pros of moving to Spain outweighed the cons. I didn't mention my idea to anyone, but decided to check on it once I got home. The evening drew closer. It was time for the London crew to head back. Angela, Jess and Laura saw us off, kissing our cheeks and waving goodbye. We all got onto the Madrid metro. I couldn't help but to compare it to the Northern Line on the London Underground. The metro was nicer. We reached the airport. We were all one step closer to home. I couldn't help it, but I wanted to stay for one more night. I knew I couldn't go. So I boarded the flight back to Heathrow. As the plane took off, I thought I had to get back to Spain. I really wanted to live there. Back at Heathrow, my dad came for us, picked us up in his taxi. As I sat in the back of his cab, falling asleep after the weekend's excitement, I heard Dad say, "Was the sickie worth it then?" I was too tired to reply, but in my head I answered, "Well worth it."